week 4, and we're talking about hydration tonight. I'm going to throw in a little bonus because I want to talk about breathing. We haven't really talked about breathing yet, and I'm sure for some of you, you're wondering, well, how does this breathing, or when does this breathing become easier, or how do I make it easier? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well after the hydration piece. And then I'll run through your workouts. I've got those right here, and give you your run thoughts for the week for each of you, or for each of the categories that we're talking about. For this past week, I saw a lot of posts on Facebook from a lot of you, so congratulations out there for the workouts you've done. I feel we definitely persevered through this time, and we're on to continuing to grow towards the end. One of the coolest things I saw this week, and I might sneak peek this in a little bit, but our medals came in, not into the stores yet, but into the US, and they are super cool. So the medals you guys are going to earn, I'm really excited about them, and hopefully you will all get excited about them too. You even got a little flashing light, so really cool. Well, hydration. Let's talk a little bit about hydration first and the importance of hydration. Really, this means drinking water, right? Or fluids, but primarily water is going to be the thing we're going to drink while running. We wouldn't want to drink carbonated beverages or iced tea necessarily. We're going to drink water, and we might mix that water with some nutrients, something like, if you think about Gatorade having a lot of salt and minerals on board, as well as a little bit of sugar. But oftentimes that sugar is a little much when we're out there running. And there's other ways to bring in sugar or carbohydrates while we're running. And so we would encourage, at least for those who are running 5Ks or training for 5Ks, to mostly think about water as being the primary thing. Now, a lot of runners who trained when they're in high school, but you guys aren't. You're training now, right? And they don't maybe take in enough water. They're not really running with water or have any way to keep water on them, and maybe not even hydrating throughout the day. The importance of hydration is that in order for our bodies really to do the things that they need to do, burn calories, feed our muscles through the bloodstream, and et cetera, we have to have water in order to do that. Water is a key component of osmosis and the chemical things that are going on in our body all the time. I don't want to go too deep in that. There were a couple of articles shared with you that you can look at on that, but water is really important. One of the easiest ways I think about this, and when I talk to new runners, is what's dehydrated muscle? And I ask them to think about what's dehydrated muscle. So I'll give you about 5 seconds here to think in your mind, what do you know that dehydrated muscle looks like, or feels like, or maybe even tastes like? And that may sound really strange, but dehydrated muscle is beef jerky. So when you take the muscle of a cow and you dehydrate it, you get beef jerky. It could be turkey jerky. It's not vegetarian, whatever it is, right? If it's muscle, but the dehydrated muscle is hard, and it's not very, not very pliable, not very flexible. And even though this isn't really what your muscles are going to do when they become dehydrated, they're just not as active. They're just not as capable of doing the work that you're asking them to do. And we need that flexibility and pliability because we need them to continue to propel us forward, right? So, so really the importance here as we're hydrating is keeping our bodies moving, our chemical reactions going, and water on board. So for a lot of you, you may have no way to do that. So I'm going to go over some products that we sell in the store that can benefit you guys and give you kind of the ins and outs of each of them. They can benefit you in a lot of ways because most of you are probably already running with a phone or some sort of a device, maybe running with keys if you got to go home, or a room key if you're at a hotel room, whatever it might be. So a lot of these things will also help you carry some of that stuff. But the most important thing is that it's water. So I'm going to flip my camera around here. I'm going to go over a couple of the different options you'd have and maybe what to think about there. And then we'll talk about how often and how much to drink. All right, so here we are. Really, I'm going to start with the simple ones, right? So handhelds were the things that were around long ago, and we carry a 12-ounce handheld as the smallest one we carry. Right now, they also come in 8 ounces. But the cool thing about these handhelds is that they made them very convenient to hold without having to hold them. I'm going to put this on, and I'll show you. Sorry for the bad video there. But you can actually have this thing just strapped. Your thumb goes right through this little thumb hole. You don't have to hold it. And so you can run along with this thing without gripping something the whole time. And that makes it really convenient. You can also see that it has a zipper. That's to hold your phone or any keys or anything else you might carry along with you. Maybe use if you're going a little longer and you want to think about actually eating on that run as well. And they also have really cool tops. Basically stay closed until you push on it. And when you push on it, it'll force out the water. So handhelds are really great. I would say a 12 ounce is probably the minimum size you want, unless you're racing and you're just racing a 5K and you just want something smaller. 18 ounce insulated is great, and that's actually insulated for cold. So it works for hot too, but it's intended to keep your fluids cold during the heat. And you can also see that these oftentimes have like a reflective material on them. So that helps if you're running at night. People will be able to see you much better with that reflective material, right? And then they've come out with these soft ones. And so these are actually more flexible, easy to stick into a pocket or a vest if you're wearing it. And they kind of collapse as you drink. And so these are just newer. They're lighter weight if you want, and they're sometimes just more flexible on the hand. So not quite as cumbersome as something where you might carry your phone or something along with you. So those are the handheld versions. Nathan's the company we carry for most of our handheld product. And then you have this belt, and these were like the old school belts. This is better than the old school belt, but it basically can have 2 to 4 different bottles on them. They'll come with a pocket again for nutrition, keys, anything else you might want to run with. Mace if you're out there running alone, and an easy on-off belt, right? And then these loops you could store a vest in, or a lightweight jacket. You just stuff it in there so you can continue to run if you get hot. Belts are great for sort of half marathon distance. So anything up to a half marathon, and or maybe a day hike or something else. The belts are great. Not that people haven't run longer in that all throughout the years, but running too long in a belt, that weight on your hips kind of becomes frustrating over time, right? So really for the distance, or even for some beginner trainers, we find that that just a vest is really nice. And this has got a hydration pack in the back. You can see the tube there that you drink out of, so it's very easy to drink out of. It hangs off the shoulder, so you're not carrying any weight. You don't feel like your hands are having to do much. This particular one's only $70, which is a great price for an entry-level vest, and comes again with a storage pocket. And you can also use the back zipper, and you can place your clothes. If you heat up too much or have a jacket on, you can place it in there. So that's the Quick Start 4-liter. If you're getting a little faster or want something a little bit more form-fitting and hugging, they make these really nice lighter weight vests with these really almost form-fitting materials. And this particular one can both carry a rear hydration pack, although it doesn't come with one, but it carries 2 chest bottles on it. And these have become real popular because you can just have them right there at your disposal. You can switch them out real quickly, unlike if you're out on a race and you want to fill it with an aid station. And these little things, you can see these little trees that kind of come up. You could just stick that right in your mouth while you're running and drink away. So great for longer distances, etc. Some of the new belts, and I'm just going to go over one last one. This one's from Nathan. You can see it's stretchy, and so it's really lightweight. It's got all sorts of storage in it all around. It's adjustable, so it fits all sorts of different sizes. And in there, you can grab one of these guys. This is a 20-ounce bottle that as you drink, it just compresses. So becomes almost nothing over time, but really easy to run with 20 ounces right there on your waist. And it just stuffs. It's just a stuffer that stuffs in and out. So another really great option. I'm trying to flip my camera around now. I can't find myself. Here we go. All right, so those are just some of the products. If you're new to running and new to hydration, make it really easy. Of course, you can use a water bottle, whether that's a sport water bottle or just a water bottle, and carry that water along. But these products make it much easier where you're not having to hold it, switch hands with it. You don't get as tired. It's not as annoying, and you can carry those other products. Now I'm going to share with you a product that I love for beginner runners because it's not high in calories, but it gives you all the minerals, all the salt, magnesium, potassium, all the electrolytes that you need to continue running to fuel those muscles and to have that osmosis take place without a lot of calories. So instead of taking on something that might be like a Gatorade, which would have 150 calories per serving, it's something that's a lot lighter than that. And I'm going to swip my camera around again real quickly. and it's Noon, right? So Noon is a drinking tab. You put one of these tabs in a bottle of water, and it fizzes up, and it gives you everything you need. You put 2 into a hydration vest, and you'd be fine as well. They come in sport versions as well as all-day versions. There's even an immunity booster version that we carry in the stores, which is great during this time, especially if you're traveling. It's kind of like emergency, but yet a little bit more catered to the athlete or to the person who's moving more often. This would be used before and during the activity. Don't drink it all day. It's too much salt to be drinking all day. So you'd want to use it just before, maybe 32 minutes to an hour before you go out for a run. Go ahead and drink a glass of this, and then put one on your run. And then depending on whether or not you like caffeine, and this is really a little bit more of the performance, they come with these, the black ones are sport with caffeine. So they come with caffeine inside of them. That's going to give you that jolt, that focus, that energy, maybe later on in a run or a longer run where you're going to feel better once you get a little bit of caffeine on board. But some people don't like caffeine. You don't have to take it. Just be aware that if you are buying Noon, that you get the one without caffeine if you don't want caffeine. Otherwise, you'll be a little surprised when you get out there and you're like, why do I feel so peppy? So there you go. Some other really great products for the hydration on the run. If you're hydrating frequently, you're going to just save yourself from cramps, from that sort of that malaise, that feeling like I don't know where I am, especially if you're out for a long time. Or maybe, yeah, it's just going to keep you fresher throughout the run. So having a way to carry it, being sure, especially when you go on longer runs, one of the things I tell people all the time, even just longer walks, make sure you know where the next place you can fill at is, right? So if you're going out for a long time, you want to know where the water fountain is that maybe you can fill your water at, or maybe where the I'll stop at a Starbucks frequently and get mine filled because there's a Starbucks on every corner, right? So as long as you're planning your routes, you'll be able to get water and refill. You won't need to always carry just everything with you. All right, so that's hydration in a nutshell. I will check questions here towards the end. So if you have any questions, put it on there. I want to talk a little bit about breathing, because I think for a lot of us, one of the biggest challenges we have when we start running is controlling the breathing and getting into a pace of breathing, right? And so the importance here is that we're not breathing shallow all the time, but we try to breathe deeper. So while you're there and sitting or standing or whatever you're doing, I'm going to do a little exercise with you, and I want you to just put your hand on your belly. None of us can see it, so it doesn't really matter, right? And I want you to breathe in, but instead of breathing into the chest, I want you to breathe into that belly and have that belly kind of extend out. You'll feel that chest fill up too, but feel how big you can pull in so much more when you're actually breathing with your belly. And a lot of us don't do that. So to get a deep breath, you'll want to breathe with your belly, not just with your chest and shallowly, right? And then the other thing is timing that breathing with your steps. I find for me, I like kind of like 2-3 steps in, 2 steps out. Or maybe it becomes, if I'm going a little faster, 2 steps I'm breathing in, 2 steps I breathe out, or maybe 2 steps in, 1 step out. You probably always want to breathe in a little slower and deeper and breathe out a little faster. That'll help you control what's going on, right? It's kind of that breathing in and in a controlled fashion, and then breathing out a little faster to exhale it. But trying to find that rhythm where that breathing becomes comfortable. Again, I talked about it early on when we were in one of our first ones. You want to be conversational in most of these runs. So you want to keep it at a rate at which you could hold a conversation with your neighbor. And that's really where you can breathe in easily. Maybe it's 2 to 4 steps, breathe out over 2 steps, start again. So I'd like all of you who are maybe struggling a little bit to try to control that breathing and even control your pace to where you can keep that breathing going smoothly. Once you get into a rhythm of both running and breathing at the same time, you're going to find you can control that easier. You can go faster and breathe a little faster, and you can go slower and breathe a little slower than when maybe you're a little panicked about what's going on and you're not really sure why it's hard to breathe. So work, at least in these next few workouts that you're doing, to kind of control that breathing, to find that inhale, exhale that works well for you, and maybe count along the way so that you're getting some idea about how many steps is that and how can I be more comfortable doing that. Oftentimes, I'm also giving you something to think about that gets you to forget about the fact you're running, right? So if you're not so worried about the running, but you're thinking about something else, that'll really be great. I just saw a question pop up, and I think it was, do you breathe through the nose or the mouth? Generally, when you're running or high activity, you'd want to breathe through the mouth. The mouth is your biggest orifice. It's going to be the one you can get the most breath through in the easiest amount of time. Oftentimes, if I'm running slower or running easy, I might breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Your nose is a great, especially if it's cold outside and other things, your nose is a great what would you call it? It tempers the air before it hits the lungs, because it goes a longer distance and goes through a warmer area of the body. So, but normally you'd be breathing through the mouth, is how you breathe. All right, so learn to hydrate. Start carrying water with you so that you're always hydrated. Recover with a glass of water as well. You know, you should be, you can read those articles in terms of the amount of water, and your sweat rate really guides how much water. But you're going to want to think about 16 ounces of water an hour. 16 to 24 ounces of water an hour is probably the rate. So if you're out there for 30 minutes, you're talking about 8 to 12 ounces while you're in activity. The worst thing you could do by eating and or drinking during activity is fall behind, right? Well, I guess the worst thing you could do is really hyperhydrate, but we won't talk about that because you're probably not drinking that much. But if you fall behind drinking or you fall behind eating, then your body system's kind of shut down, not necessarily in a bad way, but they won't process it anymore. And that makes it even harder on your stomach. So it's important to kind of keep this stuff on board and do it, I like to say, early and often. So when I'm going a long ways, for instance, I'll set an alarm. I'll have on my watch a 15-minute alarm to remind me to eat something every 15 minutes, and so that I know that I'm taking in enough fluids, that I'm not falling behind. So that'd be another just hint. But hydration is really key to becoming a runner and to being able to do it safely. Great. I'm going to hop into your workouts real quick. Your workouts for the day, for those who are new to a 5K or first time. Is going to be 3 minutes running, 3 minutes walking, times 6. So it's even intervals. You're going to be running for 3 minutes. I think this is the first time we've run 3 minutes before, right? I think so. Yeah. So new challenge, you're going to be running 3 minutes and then get 3 minutes of rest. And remember during those 3 minutes of rest to recover fully, and then do that by 6 times. That'll be really good. And then for those of you who are hoping to run the whole way, it's 8 minutes of running, 1 minute of rest, times 4. So for both of you, it's 36 total minutes out there today. You're going to warm up, right? Everybody's going to warm up 4 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes of walking before you get out there and doing it. And you're going to cool down a couple minutes of walking until you start your resting, or not your resting, your stretching. Speedsters, you'll do the 3 and 3 times 6. I would say that that's a 3 minute speed interval. That's not your hardest effort, right? That's going to be in that moderately hard. If you run 3 minutes fast, that's a long ways to run fast. So moderately hard if you're out there trying to run faster during those intervals, and you still want to recover fully in between. All right, let me see if I can find a way to look at all these questions. I know I can. I just have to figure it out on my phone. Chat. All right. Somebody says they've been seeing a lot of runners with those lately. Yes. I am gonna breathe through the nose or mouth. We got that one. Somebody's asking any advice on taking in enough water when you're cold, and being cold in Oregon. I'm not sure where she moved from. Must have been someplace very warm, but certainly don't put ice water in there or anything like that. You can heat the water. In most of these, you could carry a warmer water. It's going to cool over a longer effort, but you could heat the water. There's nothing really bad with having warmer water on board than just strictly cold water. Really, I think the thing is, if you're running, you should be heating up, right? So you should get to the point where the water is feeling comfortable to take on, even though you may be sweating, and layer. That's the other thing I would say. Go out, and when you're running, start with layers of clothes. So maybe it's a top over a base layer that you could take off. Another great reason to have a belt or something you can quickly tuck that into, so you can keep running. Here's a good question. It doesn't have much to do with hydration, but we'll talk about it anyway. How long should you wait to run after you eat a meal? You know, some people are really good at being able to eat and run, no problem. I would say you probably want to wait 45 minutes to an hour after eating a meal. Let that meal digest and then go out for your run. 45 minutes would be a good rule of thumb. Here's a good thing though, as you start to get into training a little bit more or running a little bit more, it's really great to plan your run to when you can eat within 15 minutes after the run. So cool down, stretch, and eat. The thing is, your body will use that food much better when it's what we call your oven is up and running, right? So when your metabolism is up and running and you've been burning calories on that run, it's going to take that food that you give it and turn it right into muscle glycogen and restore your body faster. So a recovery meal or a recovery, like eating right after or soon after a run, really within the hour after a run, you'll get that benefit much more. So timing your eating around your runs is sometimes really beneficial, especially as you're going farther. Let's see, and Ian's reminding people to check for the Facebook and YouTube for the recorded calls. So I think those are the questions on the call today. Any other questions somebody have out there that you want to throw out at me before we get into run thoughts? All right. So here's my run thought for the beginner runners. And this may sound a little funny, but I want your thoughts on these runs to be quiet. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't be talking to somebody or you can't be doing something else, but I want you to spend the first 5 minutes of your run today, maybe the first interval, listening to how much noise you make when you run. Whether you're scuffing your shoes, maybe you plop your feet, you know, something like that. And try to find a way to remove some of those noises, to be quieter, maybe a little bit more stealthy in your run. And really, this is going to help you just become a little bit more efficient. All of that scraping and pounding and noise that we get out there when we're running is really just wasted energy. It's slamming on the ground or it's scuffing on the ground or whatever else. So it'll help you move with a little bit more efficiency. And just think about that while you're on the runs this week. How can I be more quiet, or think about being quiet while you're running, right? And again, I'm not talking about talking if you're out there with friends. I just mean noise while you're moving. For the runners, it's going to be, I want you to think about each of these runs, the 8 minutes on each of these sessions today and your longer runs throughout the week. I want you to think about building from beginning to the end of that, right? So it's going to be a continuous build the whole way. And think about it as though instead of, like, oftentimes we're kind of dying as we get to the 8 minutes, right? So we're kind of getting out there and we're going harder, and then we just slowly slow down, and then we're really glad when we get to walk. Think about it as being a slow start, continuing all the way to the end, and having just a little build the whole way. So that means if you're going to build the whole way, maybe it's every minute, maybe it's every 2 minutes, you think about that little extra effort you're putting in there. But if you're going to do that the whole way, that has to begin pretty easy, right? Because you're going to build towards the end. So think of it as being a build the whole way, and finishing strong and then recovering in between. Speedsters, you can do all of your efforts in that same way. So follow along with the build thought during this week, right? So each of those intervals, think about them as I'm going to start easy, I'm going to build to the end. Now, you might fail a couple of times. You might get too fast at some point and you have to slow down a little bit or whatever else. That's helping you fine-tune kind of that pace to where you can hold it and build all the way to the end. And quite honestly, you may, if you really have some high-tech devices like a Garmin on board, you may find that building doesn't actually get you faster at the end. It's just you're still working a little bit harder all the way to the end, and your speed is actually the same. Here's a good question. When running uphill, should I stay flat-footed? I tend to use the toes or balls of my feet more. No, I think as you're running uphill, it's fine to be a little bit more forward. You should still keep that forward lean going, and that's by nature going to keep you a little bit more on the balls of the feet or landing there. Yeah, I don't think there's any problem with that. I like to, we can talk about hills too, but I like to just keep my head to the horizon when I'm running up a hill. Pretend it's flat. It's amazing sometimes some people have been posting this in the Facebook group too, in the Ignite group, but that it's really the mind that controls all of this, right? So sometimes as we look down and we're feeling like we're running up a big hill, it just runs us into the ground. the hill beats us. Whereas if you keep your eyes on the horizon, you pump those arms up to the horizon, kind of keeping going and pretend that it's flat. You'd be amazed at how much easier it is to roll over some of these hills around here than maybe if you're just chugging away. Now, of course, there are hills that are too big that you can't trick your mind into getting away from it, and you might end up having to walk. That's perfectly fine too. But for those smaller ones, just pretend that it's not even there. Keep your head to the horizon and keep running as you normally would. All right. So you got your run thoughts. You got your workouts for the day. We know a little bit more about hydration and things you can do. Guys, I'm really excited about these medals. I'm really excited about the coming events or the days in which we'll be doing these 5Ks. I think there was a question on here. I'll respond. It was privately to me, so I'll respond after I end here about, what if you're starting over. But I can't wait to see what's going to happen next for each of you. Hopefully you're still seeing successes along the way. Any questions, feel free to send me emails or ask them in that Ignite group. I'm trying to stay on board there and make sure that I'm getting all that stuff answered. So thanks for showing up today, and looking forward to what tonight brings. We'll talk to you all later.